You've all heard of comfort food, the kind of food you like to eat regardless of its nutritional value, but it just makes you feel good. Did you know movies operate the same way? That's right, we're going to talk about the movies that we like regardless of critical praise, box office totals, and overall audience reception. These are the movies we love for being what they are, why they are, and how they are. These are our comfort flicks.
It begins as a whisper, a promise. The lightest of breezes dances above the death cries of 300 men. That breeze became a wind. A wind, my brothers, of sacrifice. A wind of justice.
So yes, another sequel to another Frank Miller-based movie, and yes, another one that was long delayed. This time it's 300: Rise of an Empire. First 300 came out in 2006, and it was actually kind of a surprise hit for a lot of people.
It was one of those that just came out of nowhere and took the world by storm.
Yeah, I mean, it was the best time for it too, because Sin City came out like earlier that year. It was a colossal hit. So Frank Miller was kind of a hot name at that time, so it seemed natural.
I just remember 300 was the thing.
Yeah, so there was always talk about these follow-ups. I mean, there was actually Frank Miller did create I believe a prequel graphic novel all about Xerxes, like his rise to power. But Zack Snyder himself was also becoming a name around that time, so he couldn't stick around to direct it. And of course, talk went on and on and on, and that's where we get this sequel in 2014, about a good 8 years later.
Kind of not even a sequel. It's a prequel, sequel, side story. A lot was happening at that time, and this movie actually shows you what happened before the story of 300 with the Spartans, what happened during that story, and what happened after that story. So it's actually kind of neat to get the worldview outside of Sparta.
Yeah.
The whole world was not Sparta.
I mean, of course, we use the term history very, very loosely, but...
Well, these battles did happen. We'll just put it that way. How they happened exactly, I don't even think in the history books are they correct, but you could look up these battles and read the stories. You can look up these people. They were all real. Did they do exactly what were in these movies? No.
Probably not.
But it's fun to learn. You can do that, read a book.
But the problem was, because it came out like 8 years after the first one, it just kind of...
300 did not have that lasting... you can still quote it now, but it's not one of those things that's long living, 7+ years later.
We actually enjoyed 300 like the rest of them. In fact, actually, you had a pretty long history with 300 yourself.
I was friends with a lot of people who took 300 and how the actors trained for 300 very close to heart. And if you've been to Dragon Con since 2007, you would know Friday night comes out the Spartan guys and the queens and everything. Mm-hmm. And I worked out with them. I was actually with them several years. In my final year that I was with them, I was at the parade as the villain from this movie, Artemisia, in 2015. So I made a version of her costume, and that was probably the best experience I ever had.
Yeah, you looked incredible.
I had so much fun.
You were fierce.
We had fun.
Yeah.
But even when the sequel came out with that group, where these are guys who made their costumes, they put in the work. I mean, top to bottom, embraced the film, loving more variety of not only the Spartans, but you also had the Athenians who actually had really cool armor, more characters. So it was actually embraced.
Yeah.
No one's was saying it was better or anything, but as for people who were very passionate about 300, they seemed to like the film.
Yeah. Even for myself, actually, I had to mull it over in my head, but frankly, I actually kind of like Rise of an Empire a bit more.
I would say it's equal to, because where it's stronger, the other film was weaker, but where the other film was stronger, this one's weaker. So they kind of, it's like a scale where they just end up being, I would say, is the perfect double feature. Things that the original had over it, which I think is probably what hurt the Rise of the Empire more, was one, way more quotable. Mm-hmm. Two, you watch 300, I don't care if you like it or not, you cannot deny that the way it was shot was literally like paintings. Like, every shot seemed to be almost a painting of its own making. And I feel that the characters were more memorable overall.
Even if you didn't remember their names.
Yeah, if you don't remember their names, you'll remember the guy with the Michael Fassbender, if you gotta go with the actor. But you'll remember them, and you'll even remember their dialogue.
Yeah.
But in Rise of Empire, aside from 2 characters, and doesn't count if they're reoccurring from the first film, 2 new characters, you don't remember anyone else. And then no one has a memorable line. I can't actually remember any of the lines from the film.
Yeah, neither can I.
Nothing stands out, but I mean, like, name 3 lines from 300. This is Sparta.
Tonight we dine in hell.
And we will fight in the shade.
That's the point.
Like, look at how that we came up with those separately, but able to come up with 3 quickly. Whereas Rise of Empire, I'm like, I don't remember any.
Yeah, I'd have to remember. I think Frank Miller did have a hand in writing the script on the first one. I think he had a hand in the screenplay on the first one, but he did not on the second one. So with that in mind, it's still impressive that they still came up with a compelling story even with the new characters that were given. Even if they're not quotable, they're still interesting characters. First off, you had Sullivan Stapleton as Themistocles. See, I remembered his name, so he at least is an interesting.
His name you can remember.
Yeah, and one thing I was worried about, especially when I saw the trailer, I was worried he was going to be a Leonidas clone. But no, he actually is a person of a completely different philosophical set. His goals are actually way different than Leonidas. His goal is to unite all the empires of Greece.
The only thing he has in common with Leonidas is that he's a badass.
Yes.
They're both badasses.
Very big.
But different kinds, and it's nice to have...
Riding on a flaming ship, on a horse, from ship to ship, on the water. Actually, it was funny, Sullivan Stapleton, in his training, when he knew that he was going to be doing the 300 sequel, he immediately jumped on the bandwagon to do the workout, not realizing that they actually needed him to be a little different. A little less, because...
he's
still jacked.
He's still jacked, but he's not...
But he's not a freaking monster.
Jacked. Yeah, he's not Spartan jacked. He's jacked. He shows up at Sparta, sees them training, he's just like...
And the thing I love is that it's a training where you're seeing a younger person get the crap beat out of him, and then at the end of it, he just gets up like nothing happened.
Yeah, and they're all like, yeah,
yeah,
and he's just like, Spartans. And I'm like, wow, judging. He does some cool stuff, but he also, I think, is a little more humanized. Like, spoiler, I guess. After he has a very interesting run-in with Artemisia, who we'll discuss in a moment. He's on the ship, and they're just taking him back to his ship. The look on his face is, what just happened? And if you had seen the scene earlier, you would have the same question. What just happened? But he seemed a little more human. Yeah. Leonidas seemed kind of like, I read Greek mythology all that. He was like a Greek god. He was just like, let's go.
Yeah,
and he was having too much fun.
And for as noble as the Spartans' endeavors were to resist Persia, it was still kind of... You felt like it was an exclusive club of a bunch of guys who really
they call it that.
Yeah, they do.
Oh, the Spartans.
Yeah.
There's that rivalry. But one actual thing that Rise of the Empire does that has always been a problem or problematic with 300 is 300 does not portray those Persians very well.
Yeah,
they're pretty much shown as monsters, literally.
Yeah.
Rise of the Empire does not. They actually show you Persia's side. You see them as, they're the enemy, but they're not evil. They're just another empire. They explain Xerxes and why he is the way he is, but you actually don't blame him for what happened to him. Like, he watched his father die. He was a normal human man
who was kind of coaxed into...
Kind of nudged into giving up his humanity to... make the empire.
Also,
the messenger from 300, who this is Sparta, gets kicked. A good person. He saves Artemisia when she's a child and trains her and is actually father-like to her, and not sinister or anything. Like, the Persians were very humanized in this, and you actually felt bad when some were like failed Artemisia and she executed them.
Yeah,
you felt bad for them. You're like, the guy just tried his best.
Yeah, I was gonna say, that's the other thing, is that obviously not everyone's on board with Persia attacking. You could tell some of them were actually kind of scared shitless of these people.
But they also do not make the Greeks look perfect either.
No.
Like, the Spartans looked really perfect in the original film. The Athenians, they openly call out the past where the Greeks were horrible to each other, they did terrible things. So, like, it kind of balances that neither are actually good and neither are actually evil. They're just two empires running into each other and not liking each other, stepping on their territories. And
it's very blatantly clear because one has these delusions of divinity and wants everyone to kneel to him. Yeah, Greece may not be the best, but you know what? Yeah, as they actually say in the movie, the classic line, better to die on our feet than to live on our knees.
Yeah, there's different aspects, there's more subtle aspects of what maybe is the better choice. Like the Greeks, the guys who rowed the boats are willingly doing it, whereas they're slaves with the Persians. Then you have Artemisia, the commander of the naval fleet, who is not Persian, she is Greek.
Mm-hmm.
She hates Greece more than anyone else.
And they give a pretty damn good reason why.
Well, she's seen the darkest side of Greece, we'll both put it that way.
Yeah.
Little tropey on that, just a little bit. But the way that world was being shown, and I can't argue that it's probably the way it was. Yeah, it's kind of stereotypical with female villains, like how they're treated to make them evil. But at the same time, she's a great villain.
Well, you throw in Ava Green, Ava Green helps.
She was chewing up that scenery. She was having way too much fun.
Once again, another Frank Miller sequel with Ava Green in it, and again, Ava Green just nails it. Plays.
I think she likes doing being to be true. I don't know if she's done, aside from Sin City, villainous characters that often, so I think she relishes in it when she can.
We try not to remember Dark Shadows.
Oh no, I did.
No.
See, I did block that out. I actually forgot she was in that movie.
Yeah.
I really kind of wish she would. No, I remember her looking like she was having fun though.
She looked like she was having fun, but that makes one of us.
Yeah, she was the only one having fun. That wasn't. I do like that she commands. The only time she's ever even truly talked down to or slapped down to was by Xerxes, who thinks he's a god, so he thinks he's above everybody else. But one time, everyone was scared shitless of her, and she commands everyone. It was just nice seeing that kind of a thing. And yeah, she throws her sexuality around a bit, but it's like, you're Eva Green. I don't blame you.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, I just don't blame her. Go for it,
And the scene in question, how it leads into it, Themistocles says that he'd do anything to save Athens, and she's just testing him. And I mean, some people could call it exploitive, but I'm watching it going, no, she's trying to get him under her thrall.
I thought it was funny.
Oh yeah, well,
you could see it in any way you want. Yeah, there's a very special sex scene, kind of fight choreography. I don't know what the hell happened.
Yeah. Well, right there in the same camp as Clive Owen and Monica Bellucci and Shoot 'Em Up. This was some hardcore rage fucking right here.
It was kind of funny just so she kick his ass. I don't know why. That made me laugh every time just because he looked so confused.
Admittedly, though, whenever I see this scene, I'm just always, because of the context, because it fits, the joke works, I just always have to go,
Trojan man! You can't row without the right paddle. Trojan latex condoms will provide the protection you need.
Every time.
First time we ever saw this movie, he did that, and a friend of ours literally collapsed on the floor laughing.
Because
he came out of nowhere with that, and
the movie just gave it to me on a platter.
Where I highly recommend, if you're watching this movie and you know when the scene happens, make that joke.
Bring back those commercials. Those commercials were amazing.
The commercials were embarrassing.
The commercials were better than the sex that the subjects of those commercials were probably having. Yeah.
I don't even want to know. It does not rinse and repeat what 300 did at all, really.
In all things, really, especially the action. I mean, whereas 300 kept it, on the gates.
It was the hot gates.
At the hot gates. Whereas this one does what a good sequel should do. It expands it outwards. It takes the battles not just to the land, but we're going into the sea.
The only similarities are the aesthetics. Because they had to put it in the world of 300, so you got slow motion. I will say the blood effects are kind of hilarious. This was done in 3D.
Yeah, this was 3D.
I kind of considered it like there was a paintbrush, and they were like, it's very red, but it literally goes across the screen, and it's pretty-ish. And they kind of eased up. It made this movie's way more violent than...
Yeah.
Way more violent. And normally I wouldn't go for that, but they did it in an aesthetically pleasing way that it wasn't that bad.
It was so stylistic. Yeah, it's hard. If anyone who's unnerved by the stuff you see...
Why are you watching this movie?
Yeah, shame on you.
If you don't like 300 or you found it distasteful, whatever, don't watch this movie. Ain't gonna get better. It's the same. I mean, come on.
One thing we said about the original movie, one thing I've said to many people... because people are always complaining, it's not historically accurate, it's all so crazy. Though you got to bear in mind, who are the people telling these stories?
Yeah, the Greeks.
If there's anything we could definitely take away from the way Greeks tell stories, they tell them interestingly. They tell their own history in a much more grandiose.
I mean, have you read any Greek mythology?
Yeah.
In this one, the main story is told by Gorgo. She's telling the Spartans the stories. I give her credit though; she kind of tones down the story compared to David Wenham. I don't even remember his character's name. One-Eye guy from...
Yeah.
He made things sound way more epic than they probably are. He was saying giants and monsters and everything's coming. Oh, my God. And she's like, no, this is really how it was.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sugarcoat this. This is exactly how it was. There were no giants on the boats. You can have a little fun with your story, but her version is a little more realistic. She goes crazy as the Spartan guys do. It tells you something.
You know, it says a lot about Lena Headey that she's the voice of reason.
Way more reason.
Yeah, way more.
And you get to see her fight, which was wonderful.
Oh yeah, I can never get enough of Lena Headey fighting.
Oh no, she kicked. I mean, I was like, she's coming to kick your butt.
Apparently, she only had 10 days of filming.
I can believe it.
Yeah, well, of course, because at that point she was really.
She's not in the movie that much, but she also she's professional.
They don't overuse her, but she still delivers.
Yeah, all the characters that pop in from 300, they don't overshadow the film. Like, they come in because they need to be there. You have the one dude, the Arcanian, who left the battle.
Yeah.
You actually find out he went to the secondary battle and does fight in that. Like, he's not a coward. Hunchback, he pops in
Fealties, yeah. You actually get a lot more about him.
His effects were way better.
Yeah, they improved on his effects, but they also improved on his character, where you actually see the aftermath of his betrayal.
Yeah, he's not doing too good.
Yeah, he actually really regrets doing it.
They keep them there, like, just because this is the world and the stories are intersecting at times, so it makes sense.
Absolutely.
And no, Leonidas does not make an appearance, but they do reference where he is, which is side in 300, so that was kind of cool, like timelines that lined up, so you could, this is happening here, okay.
Yeah, it still made sense calling this 300 Rise of an Empire, because they still make sure to hit home the point of the 300's martyrdom, because that's what they became in the eyes of Greece.
Yeah.
They became martyrs for a very important cause, a cause which inevitably unites all of Greece. And the finale, when the Spartans inevitably come up to the battle, that's like the final linchpin. That's like, the Rohirrim showing up at the end of the Two Towers. It was like that moment.
Well, the thing is, in 300, the other film, the very end, when he's telling the story, you look and he said, like, 10,000 Spartans and 100,000 Athenians. So you see, that's where the final, we've all banded together. Well, you're seeing the small point of between the Spartans getting slaughtered, and that part, you're seeing the battle where the Spartans finally actually joined the Athenians, and then it moves on to the biggest battle where all of Greece is truly connected.
If this one had done as just as well as the other one, they were going to greenlight a third one. Unfortunately, we probably are in all likelihood not going to get that. And it's a shame, because I would have liked.
That would have been cool.
Yeah, it just would have been nice to resolve it, just to find out how it all wraps up, because I'm pretty sure that's what the third one would have been.
It would have been that final
Would have been that final battle.
Which would have been pretty cool, but at the same time, I don't know if it'd bring much new to it.
Yeah, you're kind of left almost in the same place where you were the first one, where you're just assured that things are going to be okay, that Greece will fight back. But I will say, whereas the ending of the first one's kind of more nondescript about what battle they're even at, the battle that does take place in the end of Rise of an Empire actually is one of the famous battles of the Persian Wars. And you definitely get a much more satisfaction of the idea that because the empires are united, Persia doesn't stand a chance at that juncture. So I felt more fulfilled because Rise of an Empire exists.
Yeah, it fills in it's not required, but it fills in some gaps of, hey, what about this? What about this? And expands the world a bit more.
Wraps up a lot of things, too.
Yeah, and you actually get some closure about, like, what does Gorgo do?
It's kind of nice to always have just two films that just go together so well that you really can't watch one without the other, and that's really where Rise of an Empire stands. So if you get your lust on for some hardcore God of War-esque violence, you got two movies that'll do the job for you. This film just works as a companion to the other one. I mean, this one I'd say works a lot better than Sin City: A Dame to Kill For, where that was just kind of its own thing. This one, now whenever I get the urge to watch 300, I just can't watch them with one without the other, and that's not a bad. That's honestly the best thing for a sequel.
Well, it's kind of like watching Infinity War. Nah, I ain't gonna watch Endgame. No, you gotta watch it.
You're gonna watch Endgame. You
could technically watch them separately, but you feel more fulfilled if you just watch them both.
So, do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you think that one was enough, or do you think 300 times 2 is much more powerful? Leave it all. Comments below. For more addictive content on Narcotic Casserole, simply like, share, subscribe, click. Thou shalt be served.